This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Happy Friday, everybody. It is the 30th day of May, 2025, as we close out the month of May and bring on June, and the summer is upon us, and it'll go quicker than you think. It always does. Before you know it, I mean, we turn around and football's here, cooler weather, leaves, Halloween. Yeah, it's all coming. I mean, it's not even summer yet, but you know how quickly things move, and enjoy the summer because it doesn't last long, especially if you're in the northern part of the United States. It's brief, so enjoy it, and thank you everybody for joining us here on the podcast as we are going to go through your emails, your voicemails, and respond to you and get your thoughts on Money in the Bank, Seth Rollins and his new group and his chances at the world title, and of course Bronson Reed and his joining into this unnamed, yet to be named group. So we'll chat about that, I'm sure, as we go through the emails. And before we get there, I want to address this rumor that's somewhat substantiated by several news outlets, and that is that Vince McMahon is interested in buying back WWE. That's news item number one. I'll talk about that and then Pat McAfee, and then we'll get to the mailbag, I promise. But this news about Vince McMahon wanting to buy back WWE. Number one, I do believe it. In fact, is that really news? Is that even really news that Vince McMahon, who has had his entire identity wrapped up in what WWE is, the fact that he wants to buy it back after he felt he was pushed out? No, it's not news at all. But the question is, could it happen? My short answer is, it could, but it's very improbable. Because I don't think, even if Vince McMahon had the money, that WWE is up for sale. I highly doubt TKO is interested in selling WWE. That's the thing, right? Even if Vince has the resources and the means and the intent, you can't buy something that's not for sale. It's a bit of a problem there. So let's pretend in a world in which WWE is up for sale and TKO is willing to hear Vince McMahon out and maybe would do it. And it goes through. Let's go into that highly unlikely, but a possible world. First of all, I think you'd have a lot of people in WWE very concerned. The people that work there, that things would go back to the way they were, that the rules would tighten up, creative's going to go back into disarray. And that's a legitimate concern if that were to happen and we were going to play into this fantasy. But honestly, here's some of the benefits. Some of the benefits I think that Vince took it back, if he did. Okay, again, I don't think he will, because I don't think WWE is for sale. But just to explore it for a second, what I think Vince would do on day one is probably get rid of all the sponsors on the ring canvas. I really do believe he would do that. I would think he'd bring it back to a little bit more kayfabe, meaning he would bring back some of the believability of the product. I'm not saying Vince was the end-all be-all. He had his flaws. I understand he's villainized, and there's a large portion of the viewing audience of professional wrestling that are actually here because of Vince, that loathe Vince just because. That's what we're supposed to do. All of the allegations against him, the sexual harassment, and all those things, even if they're unsubstantiated, people just believe. So people are just conditioned and wired to hate Vince, no matter what comes out, what truth comes out. And again, I'm not defending Vince if those allegations are true. I'm talking on a purely professional level. People are going to hate Vince. And there's nothing you can do or say, no amount of proof that would ever change their minds, because it's just baked into how a lot of people view Vince McMahon. Yet at the same time, we're all watching WWE because of him. So a bit of a paradox there. So I do feel for the employees that would be a bit of a concern, because at nearly 80 years old, Vince McMahon would certainly not be in the mental capacity to run day-to-day operations. I think if he were to ever buy it back, he'd make some major changes in terms of the actual staff, those who are running creative. Paul Levesque he may or may not stay, but I think Vince would pull it back a little bit from the whole international kind of feel that the company has. I mean, how many international events has WWE had over the last 12 months? They are clearly on a global mission, and that's admirable, but also it's difficult to do. So I think Vince would get rid of the advertising in the ring, and he would stop pulling back the curtain every 5 seconds, which again, I think is a positive, because Vince McMahon, while he would say he's not a professional wrestling promoter, he is. But if he said, if he were to take back control, I think those would be some of the improvements that he would make, because this TKO branded WWE is one in which there are just no punches pulled. It's, we know it's fake, and we're going to remind you all the time that this is fake. And even during the show, we're going to watch, while you're watching, we're going to remind you. I think that would go away with Vince McMahon. Now, this is not likely to happen, so I just want to bring that to the forefront, but I wanted to explore it for just a moment. He'd probably also bring back the grand stage for Monday Night Raw and get rid of that small town look that I'm sure he despises with Monday Night Raw, and where they have more seats, but they got rid of the stage and all the glitz and glamour, and he would bring back that appearance of WWE. So, but it would be interesting, would it not? The wrestling community would explode. And here's an even more interesting question. How about this? This is actually, I think, even more likely. Although it's still not probable, it's more likely than Vince buying back WWE. Do you think Vince McMahon would ever appear on WWE television again? And if he did, what would he do? Why would he be there? Now, I actually hope he does. Imagine the reaction. I actually don't think and can't think of a single star. I don't care if you're talking about Stone Cold, even Stone Cold, The Rock, although he's villainized after WrestleMania, Undertaker, even Brock Lesnar, who's still floating out there. I really believe that if Vince McMahon were to return, he would receive one of the loudest reactions you've ever heard. I'm serious. I'm not saying that people would love him and re-embrace him as the owner of the company, but just for everything he's done, whether you love or hate him, if you don't respect him, you're lying to yourself, because he is the reason the majority of us are even wrestling fans to begin with. That's a fact. So I really believe, imagine there's a story going on, someone's getting screwed, and Vince McMahon comes back in some kind of on-air authority role, limited. I don't want him in the ring competing, but comes back and kind of pulls a Linda McMahon. Linda always used to come back and drop bombshells every time she was on the air. That's, I think, an incredible role that Vince could play if he wants to get back into the company without actually having to or being able to own it. It would be very interesting, the dynamic of Vince being brought back to television, but he's not an owner in any way. That would be a really weird dynamic, and one that I think is, again, more probable than him buying TKO's WWE version of WWE. So just to me, imagine the crowd reaction of Vince McMahon being brought back to television. He doesn't own a thing in real life. They may be bringing him back in some kind of, again, ancillary authoritarian role to make the wrongs right. And I really think the crowd would explode if they heard No Chance. Imagine hearing Vince McMahon's music right now in some kind of major angle. I'm telling you, you can hate Vince all you want. The crowd would explode. So it's something to think about. And you don't think that would draw ratings? Vince McMahon, who doesn't own the company he started, is back on television. It would be incredible television. Incredible. So something to think about as we start. And the other thing is, Pat McAfee is in the news too, because he recently unknowingly amplified a rumor. And let me explain what's happening here. This is from the New York Times or The Athletic. And this is February 26th, okay, so a little while ago, McAfee sits behind a desk. Before him is an arc of chairs occupied by what a few he describes as, quote, his stooges and a feature guest, Adam Schefter. Schefter's presence in the 2025 NFL Scouting Combine logo behind the chairs seemingly preview the day's subject matter. But he has a different topic in mind. And he teases the subject, asking Schefter, have you heard about Ole Miss? One of his cohorts says there's a menage a trois that, McAfee adds, has really captivated the internet. After some more buildup, McAfee dives in. Some Ole Miss frat bro had a KD, Kappa Delta, girlfriend. And McAfee says that he stresses the word allegedly. At this exact moment, this is what is being reported by everybody on the internet. Dad had sex with son's girlfriend. Another person on set chimes in, not great, and then McAfee adds, and then it was made public, and that's the absolute worst case situation. So it ended up not being true. All right? It ended up not being true. This girl who, it has now claimed that people have called her, derogatory names and her life is ruined and because of this lie. Well, I'm not a McAfee apologist. Okay. I'm not, just based on principle. I don't agree with everything McAfee says. Okay. But why is it his responsibility to make sure everything on the internet is 100% true before he mentions anything? It's not his responsibility. He did say allegedly, which, by the way, anybody who's charged with a crime, everything is dealt with in terms of allegedly until it's proven. So it's not McAfee and it's not his fault for, if he were purposely going on here knowing that this is a rumor and then had malice intent, then yeah, but what is he going to gain from this story that was blowing up the internet? And why is it his responsibility to fact check everything on the internet before he announces it as on his show at all? It's not. Now, it's unfortunate for the girl. Okay. It's unfortunate that that was a rumor that started. Okay. But that's the internet, man. That's the internet. Pat McAfee, the rumor did not originate with Pat McAfee. He simply talked about allegedly something like this happened. So it turns out apparently it didn't. So what? So what? It's not, okay, this girl, okay, first of all, her life is not destroyed. Okay? Her life is not destroyed. She wasn't charged with a crime. She's not imprisoned. And she's actually innocent. Okay, she has now gotten a lot of notoriety, a lot of fame. Her life is not ruined. Okay, so a rumor that is not true spread across the internet. All right. It's not the worst thing. You weren't accused of murder. You were accused of sleeping with somebody's dad. That actually didn't happen. That's a high school rumor that just spread on the internet. Who cares? Who cares? I'm sorry. That happens. It's unfortunate. But her life isn't ruined. By the way, people have an attention span of 4.5 seconds, and it's going to be moved on very quickly. On to the next thing. So, I honestly don't fault McAfee here. It's not his responsibility to fact check everything before he mentions it on his show. It is not his responsibility. Okay? It wasn't originated with McAfee. It was unintentionally magnified by him. But at the time, it was something going on the internet. So are you going to speak to every person and villainize every person, every podcast, every news outlet that covered this? Everybody on the internet gets the same shame, I would hope, right? No? Or is it just because it's Pat McAfee and he has a large platform that he's villainized? See, people are after success. That's what I believe. People are after success. They don't actually care about this girl. Okay? What they're after is McAfee himself, looking for a reason. That's what it is. People hate success. And I don't love McAfee. I really don't. I feel neutral about him. I have no personal feelings towards McAfee, good or bad. He's just a very popular figure in our culture. And he unknowingly amplified a rumor. It's going to happen. So he's not allowed to talk about things that are going on the internet. He didn't dig through this girl's personal files. He didn't do anything outside of look at all the news that everyone else was looking at the same time. And yet he's the one that gets villainized for spreading the rumor. Yet it was already blowing up on the internet. It had already exploded. So there were millions of people that were already talking about it. McAfee has millions more, but what's the difference at that point? Who cares? Again, people are going to forget it in 3 seconds. So if I were McAfee, I wouldn't issue an apology. I would just say, oh, that's unfortunate. Obviously, it turned out to be a rumor, and it happens. That's what I would say. I would actually say that if she was actually hurt by this, I feel for her. But, I was reporting what everyone else was reporting on the internet. I didn't know that I'm the czar of making sure that whatever I report from the internet that's already trending, I have to make sure is 100% true. F you guys, That's what I would say. If I were McAfee, I'd be like, F you. Again, not the girl, which I actually think she's a little bit of getting a little bit of attention that she likes because now everybody knows her face. So, come on, I know you guys are going to hammer me for this, and that's fine. I'm not sitting here defending rumors being spread, but that's sometimes how rumors spread. Rumors sometimes aren't maliciously spread knowing it's a rumor to ruin someone's life. Oftentimes, rumors are spread as fact, and later on we go, oh, that actually wasn't true. You've done it in your own life. I've done it in my own life with no malicious intent. You've just, you heard something and then you tell somebody else, whether you're at school or at work. It ends up not being true. There are rumors all the time that are not good. That maybe you tell somebody else and you don't know that it's a rumor until you find out after the fact that it's not true. That's life. This is on a bigger scale in terms of how many people heard the rumor, but it's the same concept. And yet McAfee's the one villainized. F off. That's what I would say to the pitchfork mob. F off. All right. If y'all still with me, let's get to the mailbag. And let's start now that I've probably lost half the audience listening. And you guys can go give me a great review on Spotify. Please give me a 5-star rating. A great time to plug that. All right. Let's go. I'm in a spicy mood. Let's, where do we go? I don't even know. Let's start with Stevie G. Stevie says, first off, I will always be the first to acknowledge my wrongs and eat my words. Fortunately for me, I didn't actually bet on Logan joining Seth's faction. It was immediately after Punk was snowplowed through the barricade at Saturday Night Main Event that I was happy to be wrong. Bronson Reed is perfect for the spot, and it's great to see him back. I think they take too much credit in acting like Rollins planned it all along. Some storytelling just coincidentally comes full circle like that did, and they just can't help but bask in the glory of the outcome. Wanted to say, though, I feel like the World Heavyweight Championship has been on life support in recent years, and I love that Seth is all but confirmed to carry it once again. We had Damian Priest carry it, which, while I love Damian, it felt more like a mid-card title run. Then Gunther, who should have been a dominant force of a champion, was booked poorly and ultimately lost it in the worst way to Jay. And now Jay is great. I love Jay. Jay makes the world title feel like a mid-card belt even more than Damian did, and it's time they elevate it back to the prestigious title it should be. Seth will be the savior of that belt, and even better than that, the thought of Braun Breaker holding it sounds amazing, and I'm here for it. It's time that the World Heavyweight Championship is an equal counterpart to the Undisputed Championship as it was intended to be. Thanks for taking my message. I'm also in Rochester, so it's great to be neighbors of sort. Love the show. Well, thank you, Stevie. Yeah, you're not that far. Rochester, a few hours away. Not that far. Certainly closer than a lot of people. I have people in the Philippines that write in. So you're pretty much next door compared to a lot of people. So many points here. I'll start with the fact that Jay has made it feel like a mid-card title. I would agree with that. And this is not me hammering Jay for his character or his in-ring or his body of work. I continue to say I can respect Jay, but at the same time say his character's good, but he still doesn't feel like the world heavyweight champion. That's just a fact of how I feel, and seems like some of you do as well. Jay seems to be in the scenario, not an extreme case, we've seen worse, of the championship trying to make the guy instead of the guy making the championship. Meaning, a lot of times the person who's chasing it and ultimately captures it should feel like a bigger deal than the actual championship is at the moment they're trying to chase it, which then elevates the championship up to that said person's level. And Jay doesn't feel like he's right now a world heavyweight champion. He is, but he doesn't have that feeling. Gunther had that feeling. As you said, they had him lose in just a horrible way. One of the worst ways I've ever seen. A guy like Gunther, he's the last type of character you would want to lose in that fashion at WrestleMania. Not only tapping out, but so quickly. We've covered that a million times, but it bears repeating because it's so horrifically bad. And then he goes on and beats up announcers. Also, Jey Uso, I have to say, again, as good as he is in the ring, I respect the hell out of him. No personal beef with him. I think his character's fine. He's got a lot of energy. He's got the yeet thing. Every promo he cuts, and he fumbled this week, we know that. Gunther was actually yelling him his lines because he was clearly stumbled and forgot what the hell he was supposed to say, which, again, I don't really fault him. Should that be happening at this point in his career? Probably not, but I'm not saying I could come out there and remember everything I'm supposed to remember. I'd probably go blank at some point too. I can't remember what I'm going to say on this show when I'm in a room by myself, much less in front of 20,000 people. So I get it. I totally understand. And I'm not making fun of Jay, but I'm just beyond the fumbling, bumbling, weird promo this week of, I'm fighting for their support. Well, what are you talking about, right? And then he just botched it. But every promo he cuts, he's out of breath before he starts. It's just like it's like he ran a 5K, sprinted it, and gets to the ring and he's like, it's like he's breathing heavily to start every single promo. I don't know if that's on purpose, if it's a bad habit, or if he's just worked up every time he gets on the mic that it stresses him out that much. Maybe. But I just, that's something he could improve on without actually having to worry about his promos, like his tone and even the content or anything else, delivery. Just stop making it feel like you're out of breath at the onset of the promo. I mean, throughout this whole promo, he gets more and more out of breath, and then he doesn't, he doesn't enunciate words as well as I would like him to do. Like, it's a lot of the yeet type of talk, and to me, like, can we get a very clear understanding of what the hell you're saying? A lot of times it's kind of jargon and lingo, and it's like, what are you saying, bruh? Like, just, can you speak like a normal person? And then he gets out of breath. That doesn't help. So things that are really easy to fix, that require almost no effort. It's just, hey, dude, if you're out of breath, maybe you want to up your cardio. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the problem is there. But nonetheless, that's one thing with Jay that I wanted to bring to your guys' attention if you didn't already notice. And the other thing, of course, with Seth Rollins winning the championship, I'm all for that. I keep believing that Logan Paul's going to win the Money in the Bank briefcase. I could be totally wrong. Seth, with his newfound group, winning the championship and then holding it because of his two comrades, could absolutely be the case. That seems to be a very strong possibility. I think, in fact, that may be a little more desirable than Logan Paul winning. And I know Logan Paul is not in good terms with a lot of the locker room, and he posted a video about how a lot of the people in the locker room are resentful of his position. And then I saw Karrion Kross responded to Logan Paul. It's kind of this social media war that is real. I don't think there's any kind of falsehood about it. I mean, there's probably real resentment between Logan Paul and his position in the company and the rest of the roster who feel like they deserve more because they've been there longer. But here's the thing. The rest of the roster doesn't understand, or they refuse to, or they just quietly will understand but outwardly don't to protect their ego. The people in the company, their position on the show is simply really based on crowd reaction, connection to the crowd, in-ring ability, mic skills. That's it. Logan Paul checks all the boxes. And yes, he brings over a large crossover audience from the millions of people that followed him before, all the way back to the Vine app days and everything else. He has a long-standing platform. So sure, that certainly helped him, but he's not here. He's not staying here because of it. He's in this position now because of how good he is in the ring, how he continues to improve on the microphone. And that's why. It's really that simple. It doesn't need to be overthought. And just because you're here longer doesn't mean that you're better. It just means that you're here longer. Right? Sometimes you can be somewhere a lot longer than someone else, but yet someone else picks it up a lot quicker. And they're a lot younger. That's just life. It sucks. If I was a guy that was there for 15, 20 years and feel like I've been overlooked and overshot because of some YouTuber, quote unquote, that came through and brought over this large crossover audience, I'd be a little resentful. Yeah, I would. But I'd also begrudgingly understand it. And I think that's the case. I think a lot of the guys begrudgingly understand it, hate it, but can't do anything about it because the business is built on stars. It's built on performance. Okay? And if that person is performing better than you, they get the spot. You don't. End of story. So I'm on the side of Logan Paul here. I mean, I'm coming to the defense right now of Logan Paul and of Pat McAfee. If I have anybody else listening to this show, if anyone's listening at this point, I'll be surprised. All right, so I'm probably just talking to an audience of one. But based on, I don't even care. I don't care who the name is. I know that the name makes it more villainous that I'm defending Logan Paul, but I don't care if the name was John Smith. I don't care if the name is even Mercedes Moné, although I would really find it difficult to ever defend Mercedes. Everything about Mercedes Moné is just the worst. I'm sorry. Sasha Banks, right? As we all know her in WWE. Quick thing on that. I know I'm going on tangents today, guys. So thank you, Steven, for the email. I'll get to DJ in a second. The program right now between Mercedes Moné and Toni Storm in AEW is horrendous. Okay? And Mercedes Moné, she is by far her biggest fan. And I know there's a lot of people that listen to the show that are big Sasha Banks, i.e. Mercedes Moné fans. Okay? Mercedes Moné is maybe the single most self-absorbed, narcissistic personality in real life that I've ever seen from anyone, and that is saying something. There's a lot of massive egos that are in the pro wrestling industry, in the entertainment industry as a whole. There are some massive egos, but none are more on display. Nobody is more on display than Mercedes Moné. Nobody. And she's so impressed with herself all the time. I don't know if it's maybe just outwardly she is, but that's just for compensating for how insecure she is. A lot of people are like that, where they'll outwardly show how confident they are, but they go so overboard that it just shows their insecurities. Maybe that's the case with her. But honestly, if you saw this program with Mercedes and Toni Storm, it's just, it's terrible. The reason I say it's terrible is it is just so cringe produced. There was a part, and I only saw part of the clip because I could not physically get myself to watch it with that level of secondhand embarrassment, where Toni Storm is in the ring and Mercedes Moné is on the ramp, and Toni Storm does her signature move, or, kind of her movements in the ring, and Sasha Banks does her cringe, her little like hip swivel thing she does, just like she did in WWE. It's almost like they're battling to see whose signature poses are better. It's cringe on a new level. It's cringe on steroids. I cannot watch it. I actually could physically die if you forced me to watch it. My health is in jeopardy if I watched it more than 4 seconds. So if you want to feel embarrassment, you actually blush. And I'm serious. I actually blushed watching it, being so embarrassed watching it. That's a clip you can go ahead and watch at your own discretion. All right. Thank you, Steven. Whew. All right, DJ. Maybe you can bring me back to earth. DJ says, it's been a couple days since the most busy weekend in professional wrestling, which happened to be Memorial Day here in the States. This is just an opinion that can be debated. To me, this past Saturday night's main event was the best one in its return. The previous two were kind of duds, and this Saturday quasi-PLE continued two major storylines. Number one, the Dangerous Coalition as Michael Cole said could be the new name of Seth's stable, which added a new member in Bronson Reed after attacking Punk several times. I like the presentation so far of Heyman with the Wise Man and Seth Rollins the Architect and the two monsters in Bronson and Braun Breaker. I would probably assume the next step in the progression of the group is for one of them to obtain championship gold. Yes, and I think we kind of have agreed with, especially with the last email, that it's going to be Seth capturing the world title. And it also would be appropriate too with Seth, because when Seth became the inaugural World Heavyweight champion a few years ago, 2022, I believe, when they brought back the World Heavyweight Championship and then also pretended the World Heavyweight Championship had never existed up until that moment, which again is a massive mistake. Seth fought Jey Uso for the World Championship in one of the Raw main events, and Jey came within an eyelash of winning it. So it's kind of apropos that maybe Seth takes it from Jey. Interesting. But the return of Cody Rhodes during the main event of Jey versus Logan sets up the tag team main event match of Cena and Logan versus Rhodes and Jey for Money in the Bank. But will there be a screwy finish, or will Jey pin Logan Paul for a second time? I don't know. I haven't given the main event here much thought yet, although Money in the Bank is next weekend, so I probably should. Okay, for consideration and observation, let's see here. Have you noticed for several weeks that both the women's Intercontinental title on Raw and the WWE tag titles on SmackDown have consistently been presented well, while the women's United States and World Tag Team titles have become mostly unimportant and forgettable? Sometimes I think that by eliminating the overflow of championships, creative will be able to focus on the ones that matter and are deemed highly important in the overall progression of a story. DJ, exactly. This is the thing I've been talking about, that I've been warning people about. Oh, we need the women's Intercontinental title. We need the women's United States title. The women should be an equal footing just because. And that's all the reason I've been given. And I've said, I don't, in principle, disagree with the fact that the women's championships should not exist along with the men's. My concern was, and it's now being founded, that they cannot manage the championships that they have now consistently. And then you add more, and you're going to have more neglect. And look what we have. We have more neglect. Now, I understand that it's kind of whack-a-mole. You can't have everything hot at every moment of every day. I get it. But there are long stretches where certain championships are just forgotten. I mean, look at the women's tag titles, for the goodness sakes. They're most of the time a non-factor. So then you add more championships, and you're going to have, it's just by design. You can't avoid some championships, not just one, but multiple, being neglected, because that's not in the books, not in the cards for the next PLE. So then you kind of flip-flop. Oh, now the Intercontinental is being focused on. Oh, now the U.S. So while you're saying this now, DJ, the inverse is going to be true the next time we talk. The next PLE. It's going to be the Intercontinental title and the WWE tag titles that are forgotten, and the Women's U.S. Championship and the World Tag Team Championships who are now being focused on, right? It's going to be flip-flopped. But that's not a good way to treat championships. That's why you need to have fewer. That's the solution. Fewer. Number 2, when is the draft? Because I thought the draft was going to take place after WrestleMania or after Money in the Bank. Because I could name a few wrestlers that definitely need to switch via the draft from the current show. LA Knight. He's been on SmackDown since he was part of the Maximum Male Models, and a couple of years ago, he got that immediate push in 2023, where he main evented against Roman Reigns. Knight then became U.S. champion last year at SummerSlam, where he finally won a title on the main roster, but those months have gone, and currently LA Knight's booking hasn't been what it once was. Moving to Raw would be a great start of things for him going into 2026. Oh, I absolutely agree. I mean, I don't know where the draft is, but that would, I mean, for LA Knight, a change of scenery would be really good. At the same time, he's kind of become a face of SmackDown. Not the face, but a pillar of SmackDown. I'd say he's one of the biggest baby faces they have. So that you need to consider that, because he's kind of found a nice home there. But at the same time, you could make a case, as you are, that coming over to Raw would be a nice change. The question would be, what's the plan? You know, you're not going to just change. Like, what are you going to do there? Okay, it's a new environment, even though it's just really just a change of colors and a different night you work. That's all it is. But as far as the feel of Raw goes, you'd have to have a plan for him. That's my concern. They would just move him, and then they go, oh, wait, I don't know what to do with him. Also, LA Knight winning the Money in the Bank, not the craziest thing either. Bianca. Belair, I saw she's scheduled to appear on tonight's episode of SmackDown, but in my opinion, after her triple threat program with Io and Rhea at WrestleMania 41, she was featured mostly on Raw. Bianca's been back on SmackDown and it seems kind of weird. Seems like it's the Jade storyline with Naomi doesn't really need Bianca because she'll be presented as the third wheel. For Bianca to be presented as the third wheel does look like the low point in her career after the early accomplishments she made when joining the roster back in 2020. Her moving to Raw would be such a needed boost and the start of some new feuds, especially if she turns heel and feuds with Rhea Ripley. Because honestly, Rhea needs to take a break from competing for a championship. Yes, thank you, DJ. And the thing is with the draft and all these suggestions, I don't disagree with these suggestions. I think that they're definitely good changes for both of these stars. But again, two concerns. That one that I already mentioned is, what are you going to do with them? What's the plan? You got to have a plan. Especially with stars like this. These aren't ones to be fooling around with. Two, does WWE even need a draft? You know what I mean? Like, this is why I continue to bring it up and hammer WWE for their draft rule adherence, because they don't adhere to their draft rules. They just do what they want. Everybody appears on any show that they want because, well, we just want them to, and no one cares. There's no security. Announcers don't even say anything. No one's objecting. Even the Raw GMs don't care anymore. They're just like, oh, they're here. Yeah, and now they're just going to stay here. There's no enforcement of the rules. So why have a draft if they're just going to let everyone go on any show they want at any time for any reason? They already have a non-drafted roster, but say on paper they have a draft. Like, they want both. They want the draft to say that they're separate rosters, but then also want to say, well, this person needs to come over here for this story, and they can't help themselves. I have zero trust, zero faith in WWE to be able to adhere to those rules. And if you're not going to adhere to them, then why even bother? Why are we even doing a draft? Don't insult my intelligence. Just don't have one. You just have a certain storylines going on this show, certain storylines going on in this show, and then that way there's no real rules and we don't have to pretend that there are, and that you're ignoring the rules you put in place and everyone can go anywhere. At this point, that's what it is. It's a big mess. Thanks, DJ. All right, let's talk to Dennis. It's been a while. He says, he said, hope you're well, and it's been a while. Life is busy. This is the price for the live televised edition of SmackDown in August in Dublin. Daylight robbery. I was thinking of going, but I cannot justify paying those prices, and they aren't even the first 2 or 3 rows. Oh my gosh, you sent me a screenshot of how much the prices are. Good God. I mean, that used to be WrestleMania prices not that long ago. You could get that price for WrestleMania tickets in a decent seat not too long ago. And now they're going to charge, what do you have here? How many pounds? Or how many euros? You have 686. That's about $686 US dollars, because it's about, I'm pretty sure the euro and the dollar are pretty close. So 670, 80 bucks. That's ridiculous. How in the hell is anyone supposed to afford that? And again, here's what we need to do. If everyone's complaining about ticket prices, and we all should be, especially if you're overseas, you know what you do? You don't go. You don't go. There's no bigger message, no more powerful message that you can send to WWE, much stronger than something on Twitter or Instagram or creating a podcast or a video. You know what you do? You talk through your money by not using it. That's the biggest, loudest message you can give to the company is, we aren't paying for this crap. We're not paying 4 times the price that we should for a normal event, for a televised event. No, we're not going to do it. And that would be the way that you bring ticket prices down, is by lowering demand. And they are robbing all of you, blind. And even here in the United States, ticket prices have gone up. For the love of God, look at what SummerSlam prices are. It's absurd. And yeah, you want the front row, you want the floor, you're going to be paying into the double digits of thousands of dollars. It's so insane. But it's pricing families out of going to events, even friends that want to go A lot of them are just like, man, I can't afford it. So you end up going solo, or you have to like take a second mortgage on your house. Like it's insane. Now, again, it's all voluntary. No one's forcing you to buy anything, but WWE's getting away with it. We need to stop. Stop consuming the product. I understand it's hard, especially when they come overseas, because they don't go over there very often. So you're giving up an opportunity that doesn't come through that often. So you're like, damn. But if you're going to really spend that much money to go to the event, you're enabling WWE to say, hey, yeah, we're going to charge this and then maybe more next time. So, it's absurd. You need to speak with the resistance to use your currency to attend these events if you want prices to come down. All right. Thank you, Dennis. I don't know if we have anybody else as far as digging through here. I just have multiple places to go. I'm going to dig through some Patreon. Let's see if I don't think we do. I think that's all. So we might have a voicemail or two. So let's get to that right now.
This is DJ Kuzmo back at it again on your Mailbag show. Records you live on a Wednesday morning, and you know what time it is. It's time to
Say his name and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry. I believe in Joe Hendry.
That's right, folks. Joe Hendry is his name, as I take it to my 46th episode of the Joe Hendry Report. And like always, coming to you live from an undisclosed location, we have a very big show for you today, folks. A very wrestling-heavy episode of the Joe Hendry Report, as all roads are leading to both Under Siege from this past Friday and NXT Battleground from this past Sunday. But let's take it to a TV taping of TNA Pro Wrestling from last week, in which we had Joe Hendry and Elijah versus the suitable replacements, which Robert Stone mentioned on the previous episode of TNA Pro Wrestling, which were the members of the system in Moose and Brian Myers. This was the main event match, which lasted 14 minutes and 24 seconds, as Elijah pinned Brian Myers via the pile driver to get the victory for Joe Hendry and Elijah. And by the way, Trick Williams was at the commentating desk watching this match with intent as they were getting ready for their tag team match at Under Siege, and of course the championship match at NXT Battleground on Sunday. But now, with the post-match, we got Frankie Kazarian, the self-proclaimed king of TNA himself, as he came to attack Joe Hendry and Elijah. But then all of a sudden, Elijah reaches for his guitar and smashes Frankie Kazarian as Trick Williams looks on with some doubt in his mind as they get ready for their tag team match at Under Siege. And speaking about Under Siege, let's get to that tag team match, which was the main event from this past Friday, live from Ontario, Canada, as we had Joe Hendry and Elijah versus Trick Williams and Frankie Kazarian. This match lasted 19 minutes and 20 seconds. Through the course of this match, there were some instances that Trick and Frankie were not on the same page, but there was a brawl outside the ring in the audience as both tag teams were brawling. The crowd was chanting TNA, 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 as it looked like Joe Hendry and Elijah were going to get the victory. Then we fast forward to where these tag teams get back in the ring. Joe Hendry delivers 2 fall-away slams, one to Trick Williams and one to Frankie Kazarian. But here is the kicker, folks. Trick Williams accidentally hits the trick shot on Frankie Kazarian as Elijah moves out of the way, and here is the finisher, folks. Joe Hendry goes for the standing ovation choke slam on Frankie Kazarian, and 1, 2, 3. Joe Hendry and Elijah get the victory at Under Siege in this tag team main event, as we get that final face-off between Trick Williams and Joe Hendry before their main event match for NXT Battleground. Now let's get to NXT Battleground from this past Sunday, live from Tampa, Florida, as it was Joe Hendry versus Trick Williams. This match, by the way, I have to say, first of all, I was watching AEW Double or Nothing because this was the big, I guess you could say, doubleheader of both AEW and WWE, as both of these events were happening at the same time. So I was watching both of them on my computer, and this was a great time to be a professional wrestling fan because we had some incredible matches on both AEW Double or Nothing and NXT Battleground. But let's get to the main event itself of Joe Hendry versus Trick Williams for the TNA World Championship, which lasted 15 minutes to be exact. What surprised me was that this was the main event match. I thought that the main event match was going to be Stephanie McCool versus Jordynne Grace for the NXT Women's Championship, but now we're having this as the main event of Joe Hendry versus Trick Williams for the TNA World Championship. That brought a little seed of doubt in my mind that Joe Hendry might drop the championship, because usually in main event matches, there's usually some sort of title change. The second seed of doubt in my mind was that the president of TNA, Mr. Carlos Silva, was in attendance to witness this match. But let's get to some of the parts of this match, as we see none other than Trick Williams as he mocks Joe Hendry for a couple of times during the course of this match. He does the whole little Joe Hendry spin. He even attempted to do Booker T spinneroonie, which didn't really look too good. But now let's get to the interesting part here. As Trick Williams and Joe Hendry are brawling outside of the ring, Trick Williams goes for what seems to be, I guess you could say, the enziguri, or the bookend, or the rock bottom on Joe Hendry on the announce table, and the announce table smashes. Back in the ring, we see Trick Williams trying to pull a John Cena by going for the TNA title belt, as he has that in his possession. As he's about to attack Joe Hendry with the belt, the referee sees it, but the referee does not end the match in a disqualification, which was kind of weird. Why did the match not end in a disqualification? And speaking of that TNA title belt, I'm going to mention of that again. We see the referee looking at Trick Williams with the title belt, but he doesn't call off the match. Then the match continues. We see Joe Hendry quickly going for the roll-up, and then Trick Williams kicks out. As Joe Hendry was about to go for the standing ovation chokeslam, here is where Trick Williams pokes Joe Hendry in the eye with his thumb, and Joe Hendry lands face first on the TNA World title belt. And here is the finish, folks. Trick Williams goes for the trick shot, and 1, 2, 3, and the new TNA World Champion, Trick Williams. As the crowd, even me myself, is absolutely shocked of this outcome, that Joe Hendry, after 126 days, has dropped his TNA World Champion to an NXT guy, a WWE guy in Trick Williams. What is the future for Joe Hendry? Obviously, he's going to be moving to the main roster. We get all of that. But for me personally, as a Joe Hendry fan, I'm absolutely pissed off of the outcome. And why wasn't this match called off? Because of the TNA title belt that was involved in this championship match. Why did the referee not end the match in disqualification? It doesn't make any sense to me of this screwy finish. But anyway, congratulations, I guess you could say, to Mr. Trick Williams, as he is now a TNA guy on TNA and on NXT. But most importantly, this is a very shocking day for all of us Joe Hendry fans that believe in Joe Hendry. Hopefully, this is not the end of the line for Joe Hendry. We will see him in other appearances. But will Joe Hendry get his rematch for the TNA World Championship? There's a lot to be said, and let's see what happens when we see these two pair up once again. Always remember to believe, say his name. Always remember the words that Joe Hendry says, anytime, any place, at any show. And most importantly, always remember to do this.
Wave your hands from side to side and say, oh, I believe in Joe Hendry. Joe Hendry is so prestigious.
Once again, this is your guy, DJ Kuzmo. Have a blessed week. Be kind to one another. Stay safe, my friends. Believe, and peace.
Well, DJ, thank you again for your report of Trick Williams and Joe Hendry and NXT Battlegrounds, Worlds Collide, all of it. Thank you so much, because not only does it keep us all in tune with what's going on, that some of us may not be watching, including yours truly, again, not out of disrespect, just out of time. The fact that Joe Hendry loses the TNA title to Trick Williams, okay, that could certainly be an indicator that he's headed to the main roster at WWE in the near future. That could be 2 months, 6 months, 12 months. I don't know how I don't understand all of the ins and outs of the working agreement between TNA and WWE. But usually when you have a top championship dropped for a guy or girl that is slated to come to the main roster, maybe they've done what Joe Hendry's done and kind of popped in and out and made big appearance, but then disappear back into the into the ether, like appearance at the Royal Rumble, like his appearance with Randy Orton at WrestleMania, and then he just goes back into the wilderness, that's certainly an indication that, you know, they want him on the main roster, and he's going to be coming up at some point. There's no doubt about it. It's not going to be very long before they do. And usually when they're the champion, all you have to look for is when they drop the belt, you can start really looking. Now, they don't often do it immediately. Sometimes it's months before they do it, but that's a good indicator if you are a Joe Hendry fan and you want him in the main roster for real, not just kind of teasing in and out and then back into TNA and back into NXT, whatever. That's a good sign. So by losing his championship, it's actually a sign that he's going to move forward. You see that same principle whenever you have somebody drop a mid-card championship, because that could be an indication that they're going to move up to the top championship. Perfect example, Gunther dropping the Intercontinental Championship to Sami Zayn at last year's WrestleMania 40. What did they immediately do after he dropped it? Sami Zayn had obviously an Intercontinental title run, and we had Gunther move right into the World Heavyweight Championship and win the World Heavyweight Championship, right? So, kind of the same principle here. But, yeah, so thank you, DJ. Let's get to one more voicemail.
It's Kyle from Baltimore. So, again, I don't really need to correct you on your own show, but I want you to go into your show and not being wrong. But you keep saying June 9th is Money in the Bank. June 7th is Money in the Bank. Match between Gunther and Jey Uso is happening on Raw, the first Raw after Money in the Bank on June 9th. And Logan Paul is going to be teaming with John Cena at Money in the Bank. So he's not qualifying to be in a ladder match. He already has a match with teaming with John Cena facing Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. So again, I don't need to correct you on your own show, but when you want you to be on your own show and be embarrassingly being wrong over something that's been announced, so yeah, pretty busy and not paying attention to something like that, which is understandable. But I just want to correct you again that June 9th is Gunther and Jay. That's a Raw. That's it. It's Raw call. Bye.
Kyle, keeping me honest. I don't know what it is with my obsession with June 9th being the Money in the Bank, right? June 9th is, for some reason it was stuck in my head and now I can't get it out. June 7th is Money in the Bank. And yes, Logan Paul does have a tag team match. Doesn't mean he can't compete in the Money in the Bank, though. You telling me that they wouldn't want Logan Paul in the Money in the Bank briefcase match? I understand he's in a way in a higher profile match, but there's not a lot at stake in this match. Just, okay, fine, he's teaming with John Cena, who's one of the biggest names of all time, fine. But in terms of actual prizes to be won, Money in the Bank ladder match is something I think he could still sneak into. To me, Logan Paul on paper makes the most sense for him to win because it's the perfect prize at this part in his career to win. Now that, he's in a tag team match with John Cena against Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. Fine. Again, there's still some unnamed slots. And what if somebody in the middle of the match gets, quote unquote, injured? Someone needs to take his place. Logan Paul, right? So I still think even if Logan Paul is not one of the quote unquote final qualified men to be in the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, I still believe he could find his way in it. Okay. It's not likely in reality. I understand that, but I still believe he's the best person on paper to win. Now, Seth Rollins certainly is going to be the front runner for most people with good reason. He just started his new group. You want him to have a championship run. He could bring back that championship feel that Jey Uso is just frankly lacking. So again, because I'm a big fan of guys making the belt and not the belt making the guy. But in this case, June 9th is not Money in the Bank. June 9th is Monday Night Raw. There. Now you can't correct me because you'll find something else though. I appreciate it though. I don't mind having people call me out. I F up stuff all the time. And then I F it up, even after I've been corrected, which makes it worse. I don't know if that speaks to my IQ, which at times fluctuates pretty drastically. So anyway, thank you, Kyle, for keeping me honest. June 7th is Money in the Bank. Yes, Logan Paul has a tag team match, but I still believe in some way he could find his way into this match, even if it's during the match, and have him win. That would make him have even more heat, would it not? Because he's not even an official competitor. He comes in as this slimy, extra competitor or sneaks in as somebody's injured and can't continue or something like that. I think, and yes, I'm a reality fan. I'm a big fan of objective reality. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not. But I think it's something we need to consider just generally as a possibility. So, all right. That'll do it for me, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to go on to my Patreon and go ad-free, patreon.com/WWE podcast is the place to go for everything ad-free, including a 7-day free trial. You can also go ad-free, and a lot of you have lately over at Apple. The Apple Podcast app does allow you to go ad-free and do have a 7-day free trial there as well, so you can just go right into the app. And it also has the exclusive After Dark show, which we just released to those on the Patreon side of things on the NXT Plus and above. And on Apple, it's the exclusive After Dark show. So thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you stuck with me. I'm sure I lost a few listeners in this rant, but it happens. It happens, and I'm willing to take the hits because I feel passionately about this. You know, I do, and if you're listening to wrestling podcasts, I think you do too. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.